And I get, and, yeah,
I think I'm missing three, four,
Five,
and
six,
five.
7,
Are you
8,
missing
9.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, can I have that?
I'll go there.
Thank
Do
you.
you have, do you need more
So-
pages?
Oh,
pages,
Oh, I'm sorry, not the page, the category.
Oh, sorry.
I'm missing, I have.
Yeah.
I'm missing 2 and page 2 and page. Oh, part 2? Nope.
No,
Sorry,
the-
this is so
Yeah, this is page 2.
1, 2, I don't have 3.
I don't have 3, 4, 5. Category 3, 4, 5. Thank you.
so we will call the meeting to order. It is Thursday, January 11th. It is 6:38 p.m. Will the secretary please take the roll in person?
Trustee Bloom. Here. Trustee Chuck Worthing here. Trustee Fairfax here. Trustee Van Blue here. Trustee Rogers here. Trustee Blue.
Here.
And Trustee Foss is here on Zoom.
Yes, is there a motion to approve, trustee Foss's participation thereof? Moved by Mike, second by Virginia. Any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Ted is approved for remote participation. We'll have the.
Ted, are you present? Trustee Fox? With Zoom? Actually, I think we did.
No, he's there. He's on mute. So
All right.
we got it. So public comments, I received no comments via email or the web form or to Jocelyn ahead of tonight's meeting. We have one guest, but they indicated they were not interested in making a comment. And then we will move on to our discussion item of the executive director rubric. For the sake of our guest, I just sort of kind of contextualize this a little bit. This is the same rubric we have been using essentially since my entire time on the board. There has been many times where we have gone to use it for our executive director evaluation, said we should update this. And then we complete it, do our evaluation, and don't revisit it. So this is you're at a good chance to take a chance to see how this lines up with our expectations of any executive director's work. How we want to eliminate items of competency description, add items, change some wording. And my goal would be is to end this night with a consensus around a document that then we can send to Jocelyn for her to complete her self-evaluation and for us then to begin our individual evaluations of her performance as we move forward with that process for her annual review. Any questions about that?
Would it be out of question to work on it tonight and get something and then send it out and we'd have a chance to take a look at it afterwards, or do you think we need to leave here tonight? I just know that I tend to.
No, I think that's perfectly fine. I was definitely trying to put us on an ambitious timeline of completion because I didn't want us to end up in a place where we are in March and have not finished it. Like we're in a good place of like getting going and being able to be ahead of this and maybe revisit it at our regular meeting later this month to kick it off. And I think that'll still be in a good place. I'm just trying to be like, as someone who has worked with this 18 times, like if there is motivation to change it, I don't want to lose it.
Gotcha.
So that's where I'm coming from.
Yeah, no, I'm just thinking like.
We made too many changes to like.
look at it again.
I know that, I look at something with fresh eyes again, kind of gets the
Yeah,
distance
totally,
back to that.
it's a totally insider, right? Yeah, I think, you know, because I think to your point as well, David, it's, we can look at it and go point by point to these different edits, but then seeing it, that's different than seeing it as a comprehensive document that's revised. So I'm fully on board with that, I just,
Want to make sure.
No, I think that,
Yeah.
yeah,
Can I ask if you could outline like the process of evaluating
Oh, of
an
course.
executive director and where this rubric would?
fall. Okay, so this is the process as it has been done during David, Dee, and Ed while I've been here. The director will complete their self-evaluation. And the timeline in the year has varied. There were times we did it in the middle of the year. There's times when we've done it here at the beginning of the year. More recently, it's been generally at the beginning of the year.
I'm sorry, can you remind me, when did Jocelyn start?
Hers, yeah, it was like the end of November of 2022.
Okay.
So she's been here just over a year. So this kind of lines up with a year plus, just over a year. While the executive director is doing their self-evaluation, we, the board, each completes their own individual self-evaluations. They fill out this document themselves. Then the board, then they will all send it to a member of the board, you know, either the secretary. When we had a personnel committee, it could be that, or the chair of that, so that committee of the board, who would then compile the results in a document of with, like, showing where the category, where the rankings are in each category, compiling the notes, and the behavioral evidence and the comments. And once that document has been compiled, the board will sit down in closed session with the director's self-evaluation and the report of compiled feedback, and discuss in closed session our findings and in the discussion. Typically, the behavioral evidence is not, it's kind of all listed as we not identified this particular trustees. If someone wants to own up to it in the discussion, it's a particular item that happens, doesn't always. Sometimes, you'll see like 3 or 4 comments along the same lines. There's not really, but if someone has something of what could be an outlier, good or bad, they usually will speak up and share with the basis of that. We then, after that discussion, the final question you'll see is, has the executive director's performance been at a level that merits consideration of additional compensation? And then at the end of it, after we go through all the categories, we have that discussion, and then we discuss if there's going to be additional compensation, what that will look like, and what the effective date is. It can be,
That's when we would get the comps as well, right?
yeah, we would get the comps of, we would ask Billy, or before Billy, David would just provide from the HR source equivalent, the comparable salaries of other directors in the region, and show both their budget size and their community size, so we could assess, on both of those metrics of whether or not we feel we are in a competitive range for our directorship, and those pieces.
When we compile feedback, does the score matter, I guess is the question, or is it more about just having a conversation around these different things? And if the score does matter, do we average our scores, or do we kind of
When I had put it together in the past, what I did was I put it, we actually used, there were 2 years where we did used SurveyMonkey for the board to complete this. And you use one of the reports, the default reports to show bar charts of the frequency of each of the rankings, so we could see,
Yeah.
where the board.
So it's not just everything averages at 2, it's, you see that there's
The
5
frequency.
boxes in, or,
Yeah,
Whatever.
yeah.
yeah, and it's like, so we can, and again, it's like, it'll be anonymized, so, we don't know who's the fours, who's the ones. We see the raw numbers, and if somebody says, after we've talked, I was the one, but I think it's more of a 3 now that we've talked and I've really kind of thought it through with some other feedback. Or I was a 3 after we've talked, I think it's more of a 2, and so that comes out of that discussion. And so that report isn't like, you can't change your mind once we get into that discussion, but that is where we end up.
So after we compile feedback, then we come back as a small group.
So as the whole board,
With,
so
Well, that's
we all completed it, we all completed at home.
I'm writing this down in steps. So first is self-evaluation, second, or like maybe at the same time, individual evaluation for all of us. Third is somebody compiles the feedback, but now I'm unclear, so does,
Once the report of compiled, the 7 individual reports is compiled into one report that shows all the things. We all gather in closed session,
With that plus
The
the
self-
ED self-evaluation.
yes, and we have those 2 documents and we discuss.
I see, but not with the ED, that's still.
No, that is, once we have completed our discussions and our discussions about additional compensation, we also talk about, what were, you'll see at the, that last part, what are 3 areas where, 3 to 5 areas effective, could be more effective. We usually will sit down with the director, either as the whole board or the board president and one other trustee, and go over, where do we think you could, here's what we really liked, here's what we think you could do better, and here's what we're offering in terms of additional compensation, if that's the case. So there is,
Correct me if I'm wrong, the goal, I think, is that mom and dad all agree before we, that we're, whatever our response is out of that closed session, that we're coming out of it with a united response to our meeting.
yeah, so it again, it's, you can't have a vote in a closed session, but we come to consensus.
Yeah,
And that's an important piece, because it's, we are 7 individuals, but we, with this matter, we speak as a board.
and so once we decide though on like scoring and compensation, do we have a sit down just with Jocelyn?
We can,
It's
we
like,
can,
I guess I'm just wondering, do you give all this feedback and?
no, well, there have been years where we've given all of the feedback, and other times where we have, the board has just provided
Very truncated.
a truncated version, depending on like the length of responses. It's like, you need 4 phrasings of the same piece of feedback. And like I said, there was times where it's been the whole board that sits down with the director after the evaluation, and there's been times when it's just been the board president and another trustee.
Yeah.
Because it's important that I think there's 2 voices in that room, to reaffirm the message from the board. So that, no one gets out over their skis on what the message from the board is. And then if there's additional compensation, we will vote in open session to adjust the director's salary. That has to, any changes to compensation has to happen in open session by board vote.
Cool.
I I can volunteer to. No, I am volunteering if nobody else is interested. To compile the
Thank you. I would prefer not to do it myself. And since we don't currently have a personnel committee, you know, that is appreciated much very much,
no problem.
so.
Unless we have.
So I think then, before we get into the content of a rubric, I think one of the questions would be, would we want to everyone submit this use the Word document? Or do you like to do with the Survey Monkey and provide it and do it electronically, and then, you know, Monterima produces a report, or like however Monterima wants to do it, if you have access to another system of collecting it, because it's like, it's one of these things where it's like, I've done it both ways, and compiling it from Word documents is a pain.
Yeah, I can imagine,
So I will put it on how you want
I've used Survey Monkey and I've used Qualtrics, and I feel like I could do either. You
I
know?
will defer to you as to how you would want to set it up.
Yeah, I was gonna say, this is your surface map, so. You let us know later.
And I'd like to do it with a fountain pen.
Oh,
But I can form, I can form,
do a web form for us to.
yeah, I'll figure out how. And then I've actually also recently, believe it or not, used AI to help digest some of the analysis, which sounds dangerous, but I think it is interesting because I feel like it draws out my own biases in reading all the other responses, you know, like things that I might like over notice or not notice, you know, so. It figures out the tone that I have in my head when I read things. Yeah. Where I'm like, oh, maybe that wasn't their tone, maybe we're just saying a sentence.
Yeah.
So anyway, so
They need to come up with a tone font.
Yeah. And then it was, the word cloud, no.
Okay, so I feel like we have a good, does it sound, I just want to keep us moving forward to get to the content. So does everyone feel comfortable with where we're at with the next steps of we will edit this and then review it, Monterima, then we'll take whatever our final version of this rubric is and put it into a system that we will complete.
Yeah, I should have said this before I volunteered, but can we also fix the timeline before we head into the actual, like what, by when we want?
Yeah, I think if we are all, if we can take tonight's notes, I will put it into the Word doc. And I will send it to everyone, by the end of this weekend. For us to look at, and then we can have it in an agenda item on the January meeting for us to look at again with fresh eyes and just say, yeah, this is what we want to use, and kick off from there. And we can hand it off to Jocelyn and say,
I was gonna say,
complete this.
at the end of the January meeting, then Jocelyn will be able to take that and she'd be able to work on it,
Yes,
at least until the February.
yes.
Okay.
And then we have our February meeting.
Until.
Well, we could do it at the same time.
Well, if,
I have a question though. I personally, in my years of doing evaluations, I really like to read the self-evaluation because sometimes it's like a good check on the biases I may or may not bring, right? Because I might think, oh gosh, this particular person, they don't really do X, Y, and Z, but they're really good at Q, U, and T. And then when I read that self-evaluation, they actually might bring some good evidence that maybe I was a little bit too harsh, or maybe I'm being a little bit too nice because I want to not just give negative criticism. Like I've had both ways, but I actually find the self-evaluation to be a very useful tool in making me rethink what's going on. And it's like, I always like to gather my evidence when I do an evaluation at someone's career. I spend a lot of time on my evaluations and I don't know,
I feel like in this process though, we'll get to do both. Like, if we fill out ours simultaneously with her, that's not like the end of the conversation. We'll then be able to take what Madarima compiles together with her evaluation and sit down for the final conversation. So I think if we do them simultaneously, we'll kind of get best of both worlds. And then if we do sit down and say like, oh, I didn't notice that, or I didn't know this, like, we'll be able to roll that in with whatever we've already looked at. I'm not sold either way, because like you, I've done it both ways.
Yeah.
It has its merits both ways, but I think if we do ours simultaneously, it's not like evaluations at work where like, and then it goes into PDF and it cannot be edited.
Well, you can always. I guess, yeah, I mean, I guess for me, I kind of wanna. This is one of those difficult things where there is
Like,
seven people's.
Our evaluations aren't the final evaluation, like, the ones we do individually are like the background work for the final evaluation.
Yeah, I worry I'd be too influenced by seeing the self-evaluation before doing this, like, it would go the other way in terms of bias for me, like, I don't think I would be as. Yeah, I think it would just sway me. So I'd like to keep it kind of how we said, but.
So then is the idea. Like, so then is the idea that like, if when we come to the closed session. That produces its own,
Like a new.
report even, let's say.
Sort of an executive summary.
Yes, right, and so then all the materials that have come before it. Which are the set, I don't mean the executive director's self-evaluation, but the set of individual reports. Don't become like appendices necessarily, it's just the conversation and bringing it together. Or well, we can choose that, we can choose to make it.
I'm sorry, in the past, I don't think anything's been done with it, I think it's literally been used as fuel and a discussion point for when we all sit down with the evaluation.
Right.
So that
And
everybody's
we
been
pull
talking
pieces
about.
out, to include with the discussion with the director and then.
It was more so that all of us had to think about the same things that the ED had to think about,
Right.
in the same way, with the same wording. So that when we sit down together, like, we're all singing from the same song, but we're all familiar with what we're looking at,
Yeah.
and we can start the conversation. But it's not, like, we wasn't like, and then we staple all of ours to the back. It wasn't-
Yeah, right, so that way I think that we can. That we can continue to do the thing that Maya wants us to do, which is.
Like, are you in the tub?
What's that?
No, I'm just letting you know that I'm so glad I'm not at this board meeting. I'm watching it live here. And so that's all.
Okay.
Bye.
So.
Okay,
What I'm hearing is a general feeling of doing it simultaneously with Jocelyn. That
Right.
we fill out ours while she fills out hers, and then we look at the summary report and Jocelyn's together.
Yeah, and then
that helps us get it this week.
yeah,
Yes, and that will feed us together.
yeah,
So
I
I
also
think,
kind of want to give her a whole month to, the lady's got things to do, like, I want to give her time to actually.
so should we, so then are we saying that we want our closed session conversation to happen like at the same day as the February?
I think so, I think
Meeting?
if we can come to agreement on this document in January, I think if everyone's on board with doing this within, 2 weeks after that meeting, so that you have time to put it together and have it ready for that meeting. I think it's fair to be ready for February to meet in closed session to review that feedback. And then we can decide what we're gonna do during that closed session.
Yeah, and it doesn't, it feels like
obviously Jocelyn's self-evaluation does not have to be that survey, right? Like, so we could just have her document
Yeah,
at the end of the January meeting so that because she should get more time than us. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
like you
That's what I'm saying, hopefully she'll have, 3 weeks, maybe 4, like, if we're not talking about it until that, like, she could come to the board meeting and hand it to us.
Right, exactly.
But that gives her more time to fill it out.
Yeah.
It is her evaluation. There's 7 of us. There's only one person.
Yeah.
yeah.
who attended.
Yeah, exactly. Okay.
So, okay. So it sounds, I'm hearing that we're in general agreement about next steps. So, would we like to step into category 1, organizational leadership? Well,
Or like-
well, how about this? Let me say that. Generally speaking, looking at the 0 to 4. Are we comfortable with that kind of approach to these categories or measurements? Or do we want to look at a different kind of ranking? More numbers, less numbers, different thing, thumbs up, thumbs down. So like, because I think that could. And then again, I'm open to like going it from the other way, but I feel like for me, like looking at how we're judging each of these categories might be helpful as to look at how we structure the categories.
I think the only comment I have on the 0 through 4 is I feel like development shouldn't be limited to you barely, like you did a horrible job. Like, I think we should be able to offer development,
Yes,
even if, because it's literally, we either didn't see it, you need development, and then there's like actual
yeah,
categories. I don't like them. I think we could name it something else like.
What if we just have 1 through 3?
Well, I looked up the LA's example that they have for media annual evaluation, they just use scale of excellent, satisfactory, needs improvement, and not no. And I'm just wondering if we want to be kind of that.
And I think this is a step back, sorry, but I was wondering, are each of these categories weighted the same? Because it doesn't to me seem like they should be, do you know what I mean? Like it feels like we decide what's most important, right? So it doesn't have to be numerical, but, and I understand that if we're only comparing like all category ones to each other, right? Like, and we're not, then maybe it doesn't matter, but I just wanted to make sure that there was some understanding of the things that we as a board prioritize over other things, even if you have to look at all of them together.
I think it was just comparative within the individual categories. I don't think we ever like went tally, at least not in my.
Yeah, I don't think we've ever
tallied
looked at it.
everything up.
Sure.
Or like weighting everything equally. I think it was more.
So we don't have to
Choose
choose
the
the
number
number.
and like it's something else gonna get to. Okay.
But does it necessarily follow that they all have to be like presented the same, like, is
No, it's
there?
a fun conversation.
Right, so like, is it possible that we say including to Jocelyn before, like, we talk about self-evaluation, that these are the categories that we
Mhm.
think are the most important, and these things obviously are important too, but maybe not as much or something, so.
They're,
I think that's fair, yeah.
they're, minorly secondary. All important.
I think it's good to kind of find out more broadly of like reactions with this document, because I have a hard time with like how these categories, some of them have like 5 bullets, some of, I think the longest at 14. And it felt as though like I think I would be able to find evidence for some things, maybe not evidence for others, and then I know I could find, I could do my own little like mental math to figure out what I think is where it falls on whatever spectrum we choose, but I still think like there's a lot happening inside each category, and I've never done an evaluation like this. Like, I just glanced at what you're looking at, and that looks a lot more like what I'm used to, where it has a very specific line, and then it says like, yes, no, needs improvement, whatever. So I don't know, I feel like this is almost so subjective as it stands. Cause it is about like what you emphasize, like even within each category, like, and then there's duplication within categories too, like I think number 9 has 5, 4, 6, and 1. And I don't know, I just wrote it that way, but, there's just a lot of like cross, yeah, so I just wanted to share that. I'm happy to keep it simple and use this tool. I don't think it's a bad tool, but I think like
Would it be
there are
helpful
better
if
tools.
instead of calling it like the competency description, we called it like examples of exemplifying this competency?
But I think it kind of goes to what Mary was talking about, like the categories, like, are there bullets in this that also, I think there are bullets in each of these that are more important than others. So it's like, depending on what you look at.
And that's,
Right.
that's the nature of 7 people before doing this, it's, or each of us has a separate priority.
Right, but I
this.
think what Christina's talking about is the fact that you're just giving a number for this entire category.
Yes,
Instead of rating each one of the bullets and be like.
Oh,
each
you're
one-
saying you would prefer to rate each one individually and then like take and like an average.
I think that's what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's more objective, but I think there's also like more, there's benefit in qualitative and quantitative. I just, as it stands, like, I know 9 was the sloppiest for me, I can understand why that one hasn't been, used. Like you mentioned, it wasn't easy to sort out previously. It's because it falls into all these other categories, so like, again, it's just.
well, I think, well, I don't know how to do this like the evaluation in an objective way, we don't have
You can look at like.
specific metrics tied to the executive director's position.
No,
Like, and so for me, it's like, this, the executive director's evaluation is all subjective, unless we're gonna count like how many people walk through the door, how many folks circulate, like things we can count. I don't know how it's not subjective.
True, but I guess like, yeah, I know.
maybe there's a way that for each, in the spirit of moving us forward, like maybe there's a way that we can start with each of the categories. And then just name what we think each of those categories speaks to, limiting us to a couple of bullet points.
Sure.
And then, you know,
Yeah,
right?
I'm over like, we go, like, yeah, I'm just like, where I'm going, I look at this, it's like. This job is also, like
Yeah.
subjective, it's very nebulous as to what each of us think is.
True.
Right, so then maybe we come up with the 2 or 3 things that we think most speak, and that's where we can create consensus among the 7 of us about what the things are. And then if there are other things that get left out, they can be part of the. Who said the example? Did you say that we could have them be examples instead of competency description? Yeah, my thought was like, if it's not an actual description of organizational, like, I think we all understand what organizational leadership is, but if we're trying to give her guidance to like, what are we going to look for in the narrative that you hand us? These are examples, or these are things that would exemplify, leadership. So maybe it's not we're describing, maybe we just giving examples of where we see it. And I feel like some of these feel more like examples. So maybe, and I'm thinking maybe a combination, where we do a couple to describe, a couple of bullet points to describe. And then say like, whatever examples might include, or examples of like excellence in these areas might speak to, these different, do you know what I mean? Like, we could do it.
Well, especially category 1 leadership, the description to me is not so, like, there's so much more that's leadership than, like, those don't match to me very well.
Yeah.
So, but we never kind of finalize the overall rating question that Matt posed at the beginning.
Yeah, 0 to 4.
Right, is it important that it's numeric?
No.
I mean,
I I think it's a matter of, because I mean, especially if we're. Yeah, because it's not looking at a number you know, if we're looking at frequency of responses, you know, whether it's, you know, thumbs down, thumbs up, or a shrug, you know, versus numbers, it's, you know, what are we, you know, we're seeing where the consensus of the board is in a specific piece of feedback, so I think it doesn't have to be numerical.
Well, I
It's
just
just what-
an example that I that's not satisfactory needs improvement, I just respond better to that than numbers, but if I'm the only one, I'll figure it out, I'll like adjust.
I don't just do whatever, it's like, I by no means.
All right, numbers are marking after.
That's what I said, I'll just like the other way. I was gonna say, like, we are like slightly shows. Yeah,
so I guess this is where I would like to know about the compiler of our data and how, if you have a feeling, because for me, like, I'm a number person, I'm sorry, and it's like, and I like it, and I'm actually one of those jerks who's like, I believe it's a 3.5, and this is for me more of a 2.7, and then I'll like put down all like my reasoning behind it. And so that's why it's like, it's kind of nice to get like averages, and it's kind of hard to do averages if you were to be like.
Well, the problem is that they only 7, but then, I mean, like you know, I think that the bigger the number of like data pieces you would collect, the larger that number is, the more like a numerical thing makes sense. But I think with only 7, it doesn't really matter. Like I was thinking something that across like electric scale, so you would go from like strongly disagree to strongly agree or something like that, and then the graph or any kind of analysis will just show that falls. And again, it's only like it's only 7 of us, you know, which is obviously a lot when it comes to agreeing on anything, but like when it comes to I think that doesn't seem like a.
Ted, were you trying to say something? I just saw the green box around his name, so I thought he was trying to say something, so I just wanted to give him a chance.
But I do like, I mean, I think we can keep numbers, and I kind of do like the language better of what you had from ALA, what was it, satisfactory?
Excellent, satisfactory needs improvement, no.
And so.
And it could be 0, 1, 2, 3.
That kind of solves the development problem.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what the development.
I think those labels with those numbers, I think you don't have to, like, to your point, is like, we can structure, like, the names of that, you know, those, if the label, the title of the number helps compare, you know, frame it better for how you approach it. We can do it.
Are you confident with the 0, 1, 2, 3? Because like, here we have like line, like 0 and that's the question.
Okay, so I'll translate them.
Okay.
Are you looking at, I'm looking at ALA.org and then like the Hartfield Public Library Board of Trustees, their director evaluation, is that what you're looking at, Suzanne?
I found one and it can open it, the title is mid/Hudson/Director Bell.
Oh, interesting,
It's a
okay,
different one.
yeah, because I'm looking at the Hatfield, Massachusetts, one that's on their website.
ALA Sample Director Evaluation.
If we are keeping these,
Because I thought, you know, librarians, they have a lot of resources. And library organizations are like.
Yeah.
if we're keeping this still, I would say we should get rid of 9 though, because to me, it's much redundancy. Like, I don't see one that, like, we could move some of the bullets to other.
I would say, I wanna make sure that we move. I would like interpersonal skills to live somewhere, I don't know if it needs to be box.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of organizational leadership or. It's part of everything, which is why I think. Whoever made this was like, we should also do something like, I don't know.
And I think my comment was, outside of our board meetings, we really, like, our ability to observe that interpersonal thing is very limited. you know, unless we attend public events.
So this is,
And then that's like, it's public interaction.
so this is, I guess, a thorn then, especially if we wanna do this in a timely way, but it raises the question, I think, of seeking input from staff. And I,
To do a 360.
I feel like we should do something, I don't know what exactly it should be, and of course, that will take its own, like,
Process.
process and dissemination and collection and all of that kind of stuff, so.
I can, if everyone's comfortable with this, I can speak to Billy tomorrow to see if that they have done anything like that. And and if they haven't done any kind of 360 or full, you know, full circle, how long it would take to spin up, to do that, as part of this.
Today about the surveys.
Yeah, the employee satisfaction, yeah.
Employee satisfaction and that sort of thing, so we should be able to have access to those. I was thinking about that today, because we stopped by while we were doing the filming that over here, and they were doing one of the meet with chat with, Jocelyn and Billy staff meetings, and just stopped in at the beginning, didn't stay while they were filming, because we wouldn't be there normally, right?
Yeah.
But they had kind of the last few months of evaluating and, employee evaluations.
Well, I guess the question I wanna ask is about the benefits of having questions that are specifically part of this process.
Yeah.
And therefore, like,
The data being separated out.
or the questions being parallel to the questions that we're asking as part of the site evaluation on the board.
When I was reviewing this, I firmly believe in a survey, but I think to me, like category 3, because it's around customer service, category 6, because it's around personnel, and then category 9, like those are all bullets that could be turned into questions. Like not all of them, but like reduced into questions for staff.
And I think these are the points, Matt, to your point with that program, where we have very limited visibility, unless we're gonna, like, I've seen Jocelyn interact with the public while I was also not interacting with the public, but that's not like a holistic view of what she's doing. We're gonna get a much better view of that from people who work with her and go to those events on a regular basis. So my view of her customer service is gonna be, or any ED is gonna be pretty limited, because
Yeah.
I get good customer service when I'm here, but that's not the whole of.
And then
How to judge.
Well, also, I think that the executive director, no matter who it is, has very limited, you know, like is not sitting at our office, is not sitting at Trustees.
It's more public interaction, not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like how to drive, you know, and for me, it's like, it's so it's like, it's all, you know, is it, you know, when you look at that, is it, how is she directing the library in the area of customer service? Or is her personal approach to dealing with customers in the public? It's like, so which way are you gonna look at it? Is she, you know, leading the organization, directing the organization as the director in public service and in customer service in a particular way that we like and want to foster, or is it how is
She's interacting.
how is her? Yeah.
In all those different facets, because it talks about, you know, gaining respect and support of other persons or organizations who come in contact with the library, and also articulates clear vision to staff, so it is multifaceted.
So-
And that is the role. Yeah.
But I feel like some of that
Maybe
maybe
it's-
under organization.
But I do like public engagement or public interaction.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's more community engagement, public engagement.
So then maybe we go ahead and finish our thing, but maybe keeping an eye on what in the rubric that we generate is extractable into a staff facing thing, which you will get in touch
Yeah.
with Billy about
Yeah.
how. Because I do think that it should be, I do think that it should be separate, you know, because I would like
Yeah.
to announce that intentionality. If we, I think.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
and
then, my point about, that they do these surveys is they have the structure.
Yeah, right,
Right
right,
into whatever we come up with, into that,
right.
and staff is certainly accustomed to being surveyed, it seems. Because there's a lot of.
They
them.
get, they get like.
Yeah.
several times a year, yeah.
So, and I think including them in the process is really critical, because we don't, you know, we can see engagement with the public, but we can't see interpersonal stuff. And
And then
this work.
And then maybe so then when we do the closed session in February, then we're looking at 3 discrete pieces of information. So one is the compilation of our feedback, one is the executive director's self-evaluation, and the third is the staff piece.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Is that, but,
I think I think if Billy feels like we can get that information collected in that time, I think that's totally
Yeah.
doable. It is like, and that's what I think, it's like,
We have done like somewhere wording. so
yeah.
we can think about it. So we can
Like
let it out
structure it,
yeah.
get it out.
next week, so that.
Yeah, assuming that there's not already been something in place, I mean, I will say like, I'm for it, and I think I've mentioned this before, like, when the board has been the initiator of trying to collect that from, like, the managers and the leadership team. The feedback is not useful. Hopefully, like, Billy, that when the board has been the initiator of the trying to collect 360 review stuff about a director in the past, it has not been successful in terms of
Like what, how was
the
it?
feedback, it was done with, one was done with SurveyMonkey, from a board member's personal account, so it was not coming through with the idea of the intention behind that was, since it wasn't coming from the library SurveyMonkey, that there would be a level of confidence that any responses would be confidential. And I cannot remember how the first one was done. The number of people who participated was very low both times. The like the subjective feedback, the qualitative stuff was so nebulous and like nothing there, like it was very general stuff that the board was not confident that the staff felt safe in providing feedback via those methods, and therefore we could not rely on what was there, because there wasn't like anything meaningful in it, in any of the text fields, because it was just like, the sense of the board was, the employees don't know where this is going, even though we said it's confidential and for the board eyes only, they didn't have confidence in that message.
Do we feel like they've gotten enough surveys now at a frequency that they have more confidence in the
It
process?
says in it that there was really high
Again,
participation.
74%.
Yeah, like was this at a time where, I'm sorry, the school all calling on.
Yeah.
Like, do we feel like now that they're more acclimated to some of these surveys to
I
electronic
think it's very,
surveys?
I think it's very possible. I'm hoping it is. I would love that feedback, but I'm just like, it's like, I just
Yeah,
want,
yeah.
yeah, I just want to put it out, it's like, we should be ready that what we get is junk.
Well, part of that though is in survey development though, so I guess like you're gonna meet with Billy and talk to him, but then is there a way for all of us to just like chime in about the survey before it goes out?
I mean, I'm pretty sure Billy will have access to, like a templated
Yeah, we want,
survey,
like,
pretty ED.
Yeah.
In
Oh.
that like, if there's something
But
specific.
then maybe you feel like, oh, match it up, like,
Yeah.
right, so that it would be inbuilt, but maybe I was.
I mean, I don't know that the staff is gonna.
I don't say I don't want something like
Like this, but like, it's the same,
Like,
because we want the same kind of, well, not just that, but I want.
no, I think it's just like the categories more so, like I said,
Yeah.
I think organizational leadership, personnel, and whatever 9 is interpersonal, like those things can be surveyed by staff. And they don't have to look exactly like this at all, I don't think they should, but like, to me, that would influence, when we have that sit down in February, that would influence my scores. I think that would be evidence in one way or the other about some of these things that I don't know as much about.
So the thought that I need to pull them off of here and hand them to staff and.
You know, in
I
terms of
don't
the categories,
Maybe, I don't know, like,
there might be like good questions, and I'm assuming there is a database of, you know, of proven effective questions in a variety of categories.
Well,
Because
then
like,
what, we should have those two. I guess.
in terms of like surveys versus like evaluation, like in terms of like, the survey construction is very specific about trying to remove bias in the question language and stuff like that, and like, there's a whole science to the psychology of the word
Sure.
choices. And, but I'm like, you know, what are the key areas that we want? Do we want staff feedback on financial management or customer service? Because I think relationship with the board, I don't know, like, does staff, you know, staff doesn't even weigh in on that.
No,
You know, it's just like, I think what I'm hearing from Christina, tell me what I'm wrong, what I mean, that you're looking for feedback in like categories, not specifically
yeah,
bullet points.
Yeah,
Like the
and
categories.
to me, it's like the ones that I would have gaps filling out, so like number 1 has some gaps for me, so I don't think like I'm really. I can score, sure, but like, it would be nice to have some staff feedback for number 1. It would be nice to have some staff feedback for number 5, which one did I say? I said 9 and I said, customer service, 3?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so
we're changing our community. So 1, 3, and 5 to me are like things
And then
that.
Is anyone
I'm
have
not
the title for 5?
Yeah, I actually, in the comfortable, I was making poison emotional stability. I was like, what is?
Yeah, all of
It's
this.
this after that I got it, so that's why I would go to the criminal. So, okay, so, I guess, I guess what I wanna make sure. Maybe what we can do, again, I keep thinking about the process, but maybe what we can do is as we go through each one of these, we also mention if there's anything that we would want to hear from staff in these categories. Do you know what I mean? Like, we point that out or we indicate that. I do think there should be some, something that makes it comparable so that we're not comparing apples to oranges. Do you know what I mean? So that if we're going to take that feedback, that it's in the same kind of space.
I think we're doing this 0 to 3 with the wording next to it. Let's use that as the same, because we're not asking the staff for a narrative for it, right? I'm gonna use the same wording for the example, competency, whatever we call that.
Sure, and you said you said the relationship to the board, and you're right, but I was also kind of thinking that if for years the boards weighed in on how the executive director talks to staff, and it feels like they should only get their shot to say how they think. Do you know what I mean? The executive director of national board, I don't know, really. But I mean, even that's for where we have to say, right, obviously, I just mean like. I just would like for it to make sure that we're doing fair comparisons or fair, like drawing in the.
Apples to oranges.
Or if he has, I mean, to keep it easy, I guess, if there is like already something out there that he could use, I just don't wanna use something that has been used and then not proved to be very useful, like, to me, that would be not a smart thing, so. Like, if there was already a template out there, if we could just kind of like categorize the questions to be like, this is organization leadership, this is personnel, this is interpersonal, like, so that we then know how to code it when we get the results.
Mhm.
I think that's possible without being like too, cause yeah, to me, it's a supplemental document, it's not gonna be equal weight. In some cases, it might be pretty, yeah, I guess we'll see what we get, but
I was gonna say, it's gonna depend on the quality of what we get, cause if it's fluff, then.
I'm always so biased with surveys, because I'm someone who like actually loves to do them, and I love to spend like really good time on them, and but I know it's always an uphill battle, sometimes getting good feedback through surveys.
But it did sound like there was gonna be
Yeah.
good participation and,
Mhm.
I think that, it's really.
And I feel like we have, it seems like we have good access to, you know, the stuff, whether it's the, you know, the net promoter, you know, database that, or the HR source and some of the other resources that Billy has access to. I think like that there is gonna be a pool of survey. If we give him the categories that we want to have stuff on, he can pull together something for us and in those areas that we can
Okay.
review before it goes up.
So the other thing I just was, thinking about is that the LA is in Chicago. I'm wondering if there, like, is somebody that we actually call them. If they may know of a library that has surveyed staff for evaluation of the ED, like, is there, like I said. Libraries are full of resources now, they did, so.
So is that the kind of thing that we think that we might know?
Can I get
Like, I think
clarification? Is it so that like we can use that survey? Or is it to see whether or not it's been effective?
to find out if they know of somebody who has used
But
a survey actively, and there's something, so it's essentially. To know if it's effective and to know if there are like, oh yeah, here's this great. Template that we have that's a starting point for us, but I do think, we're in agreement that we want to survey staff. And, we're in agreement that we want it to have some relationship to this, so I'm saying that maybe the thing is to. Move on with getting this together and then extract from that what we'd like to go to staff, and at the same time, you can go to Billy tomorrow, I can call the ALA. And we can see if there's, if we have already existing resources. Yeah, does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I guess my concern is if we are asking about leadership and, a certain categories of things, right? And we get connected with a library that is asking different categories of things. Does that mean we have, and this is fine, I actually just want to understand where we're going. Does that mean that we come back in a week and we then rewrite this a second time?
Okay, guys, I have a story about snow and the Oak Park Public Library.
What's that?
I said I have a wonderful story about snow and the public library.
I don't know how that relates to our discussion about the director's evaluation and the staff survey.
Okay, no, we were just talking about having the library closed tomorrow.
We weren't talking about that at
Okay,
all.
sorry.
That was some time ago.
So, yeah, I just was feeling like we're trying to create something that.
You don't want to be
exist. And I was just saying, I do a little digging to see if there are resources, that's all. And, but that, I think we all have a lot of thoughts about what we have in front of us that we can sort through.
Yeah.
And make some progress, does that make sense?
Yes. So, okay, so. Let's, I think so do we feel like we can drop number 9? The interpersonal from the board evaluation piece. Because it's also keep in mind that anything that we create here, drop here, is also gonna be dropped from Jocelyn's self-evaluation, so. So, Like, and that was just my thought that just occurred to me is like,
Yeah.
we don't necessarily have that perspective on how to fill it out. But for her self-evaluation, do we want her feedback on how she feels for her interpersonal? Like that, so it's like,
Yeah.
so yeah, I feel like that's like, this just occurred to me. So it's like, believe me. From my perspective, I was all for dropping that and so realized she also does this.
So,
Feels like, I don't think so.
no, I want to.
Okay, it almost feels like,
Unapologetic.
oh, okay, I know, I wasn't sure, I'm big sister, so I wasn't sure, like, no. I almost feel like 5 and 9 might be able to be, because you had mentioned that earlier, right? And maybe that's what we should do, is because like your personal characteristics that impact your job,
That feels kind of.
it's super icky, it's like, just like, that's like a litigator's dream, it's like, but then like self-evaluation.
Others,
Yeah.
and maintains your ethics.
Yes,
So, like,
I think it's also the poison emotional stability piece, but the
Emotional stability.
That's crossed. Yeah, it's been crossed. Mine, I don't know.
No, it's,
Yeah. But it seems like maybe it should be, instead of interpersonal effectiveness, which is also a key title, like, maybe like 5 and 9 should go to be like, we have organizational leadership, and then maybe it's like people leadership, right? People leadership, and like that's more of a leading of staff, leading of situations within the library versus instead of customer service, which I also find a little ooky for a library. And we change it to, I think someone said in community engagement.
Yeah,
And then we do a community engagement, and that is more about,
outside the walls.
Yeah.
Like organizational leadership is kind of the umbrella of everything. People leadership is how she deals with people in our walls.
Yeah.
The community engagement is people outside of our walls.
Yeah.
So can I suggest that we start from the first one, and I feel like as we make our way through the bullet points, things will become redundant, you know what I mean? Like when we get to like category 5, it will be like, these things have already been said in the first 4.
Yeah.
But I do, given your point about like, she will be doing this, I want there to be explicit spaces where we invite her to mention things that we have not thought of.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, and that's that opportunity of that behavioral evidence, like in the bottom, it's, we're not just. It's not just that ranking, that categorization of excellence, satisfactory, needs improvement. Or.
Would it make sense? Because I think what you're asking for is actually different from what this is meant. Because I feel like the evidence is really like comments, right? Where you would give comments and explanation. But I think what you're asking for is you want to hear a little bit more about what the explanation, like what organization means. So maybe is what we want is like above the explanation on performance, be like what it means to me as an evaluator, whether it's a self-evaluator or whether it's one of us. And then it's like organizational leadership. It means whether or not you have like, so I would say, do you have a vision for where you want to see the Oak Park Library in 2 years, 1 year, 10 years? And I realized I didn't follow chronological order there. I'm very tired. But that way, it's like that place where she can put in what this really means to me is this, and then actually like go through and be like, I see the Oak Park Library is going here. This is what the mission means to me. This is how I've developed the mission. And then when we would go in, it'd be like, this is what so we understand, and it's kind of a good level set for where we are. So it would be like, evidential behavior, so it'd be like comments, right? Explanation.
Context.
Context, right? And then, but then above it, we could be like, would be like another square here, right? Where it would be like, what does this mean to me? Like personal statement. And then like the personal statement as an evaluator can be put forward.
Well, actually, what you're saying sounds fantastic, but it wasn't what I was saying, I think all
I'm listening to yours,
no, but I don't want you to lose it, because I think that is what we should do. I just meant like a category, literally a category that we have not thought of, that she might be like, this is actually crucially important to my job, or, but here's, you didn't ask me about. You're right, like you didn't, things we can always put in. So that's some, and where she can take ownership of this process, and any executive director could be like, here's what I think is truly important part of my job that nobody's asking about, that's what I feel like that would have been.
There is nothing there about our collections. Does anyone find that a little ironic? Because
There's nothing here
about our collection management, vision.
No, I feel like that lives with the library, so the rest would be, I feel like what the ED would contribute would be under organizational leadership, if we want to do something like recognizing how is the ED guiding that staff, but I feel like actual collecting lives with.
In the one that I saw from the ALA, one of the things under organizational growth is, collection is responsive to community needs. Which I thought was very.
So that's an interesting thing, is that we have organizational leadership and we have innovation and improvement. Would organizational growth be a better term?
And then we can have leadership refer to like the people thing that you were talking about, maybe.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Even to like,
but that's why I love this chapter, organizational improvement, or what did you say? Or innovation. Or organizational growth. What do we want to,
So
so what do we want to call this category?
section one.
Oh, that's what we're talking about.
So there's the organizational growth. Or was that talking about category 7 with innovation and improvement?
That's what I,
Yeah, that's what I thought we were talking about too.
So then maybe it's just, the fourth category is just leadership, and we'll see.
I think it's organizational leadership, right? Because there's people leadership and there's organization.
Well, what is I'm trying to figure out what's effective decision maker, proactive problem solver, working for that, I mean, like.
Because I think
all
for
of
me,
these
that's
things,
like,
it's such an error.
it's a greater, it's the over, for me, that's the overall picture of what the director's doing.
Okay, like.
And-
From the organizational growth, the library is making progress on its long-range plan. LRP, services to meet the goals and objectives of the LRP are carried out with SD involvement. Goals and objectives are evaluated regularly. Creativity and initiative are demonstrated in creating new services programs. Collection is responsive to community needs, which I think in this community is especially important. The library is responsive to changes in the community. Staff are aware of library's long-range plan policies and activities. There is a working knowledge of significant developments and trends in the field, and building and grounds are kept up. So it's like.
Those fall in what we have in 7 and 8.
Yeah.
Those are all kind of in 7 and 8.
Yeah.
I mean, innovation and then planning and problem solving is a lot of the, like, not everything in there, but a lot of those like long-term stuff and like changing and stuff is in 7 and 8. So it's one of the, for me, there's, every director is gonna have strengths and weaknesses, but then in certain areas, but then there is a big picture, there is an overall general sense of how they are doing, it is. And so it's like, part of me is, I feel like there should be, I wanna have something there that says, this is how I see you, big picture, everything included, because sometimes it is greater than the sum of the parts. Or not, and so it's like, you can have, we've all seen movies that have tremendous cast and suck. And we've seen movies that are like, none of these people are generally good on their own, but somehow they all come together to make a tremendous film. And it's like, we've seen that, and so it's like, for me, it's like, that's where I'm coming from that number one, it's like,
more to the.
what is the finished
Yeah.
product, what is the finished product? You know, it's, yeah, not great in the budget, David sucked at the budget. I mean, he admitted it too, he was not great at some of the finance stuff. So he brought in people who were,
Yeah.
but he was still a great director, you know, and so it's like that. There were other things that combined with that,
And with that,
To elevate.
when I started, he brought us in for like 2 sessions about budget before we had to go into the budget, because he really like understood that.
Yeah,
So like self-awareness of strengths and weaknesses, and then also being able to use whatever weaknesses you have in leadership to be transparent about that.
Encourage
somebody
somebody
To help somebody else with that through your, like, those would have,
I also, but Maya, you had said,
Those are-
you were suggesting number 9 going to people management, was that it, or people leadership?
No, 5,
5,
which is personal characteristics that impact the job.
I feel like 6 would, like, that makes a lot of duplication with 6 since that's around personnel management and development. If it's
We
like.
could have, we could merge them.
so should we start by like crossing off things that we didn't want and then see?
well, I would say, I think we hit on some good stuff in that section, in that category 5, that we were like, ooh, no, let's get rid of that. Let's work through each category and do some eliminations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
there's some more combination.
Yeah, I think, let's get rid of some bullet points first, I think
Yeah,
that will help clear some space in our heads as we look at this.
And then we can, it's almost like I wish I had all the competency descriptions separate and then could code it to which category I feel like it fits in, so that we're not duplicate. I'm such a.
No, that's fine. So category 1, is there any of the bullet points that folks feel should get struck from there?
I wanted, well, I don't know if it needs,
Yeah,
I don't know if it needs to be struck. But proactive problem solver, when we have a section about problem solving.
Yeah.
That's fine, that's fair. Yeah, I think that's a good way of saying it, so. I think we should strike it because it's redundant to this other area, that's fine, but I just wanna make sure
What
that
section?
category 1.
We're in category 1, there's proactive problem solver, but then there's.
Secondary problem solver.
Working is called planning and problem solving.
Okay. All right, anything else?
Instead of stays current, this is just a modern language thing, but maybe, educates and continues to self-educate regarding, new and emerging, issues affecting libraries. Like something like,
Knows them and implements them.
yeah, well, yeah,
Knows and, because I feel like
Knows
this is like,
and-
I know, like, I know about it, and I don't do anything, and like,
It implements the practices that best fit us, because it's like,
yeah.
not
and.
everything current is gonna work.
Right, well, so it's like, is aware of, new trends.
And implements as in.
And implements, and plans and implements as appropriate. I would even be okay with filters, plans and implements as appropriate, but. Seems like an extra step.
I don't say, sitting here thinking about my work life, like, should do more. Filtering as a separate step.
It's like a real important step. And it's a hard one to manage.
Otherwise, I feel like this category is okay for me.
Yeah, this is actually a pretty solid beginning.
Goes downhill from there.
But, and it would also be instead of, competency description, just description.
Yeah. And then organizational leadership, right, is what you said?
Or organization growth, or do.
I think road feels more appropriate for the application.
Innovation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think instead of organization leadership, let's make it grammatically correct for organizational leadership.
Can we just have evidence instead of behavioral evidence? Is there, like, does that make
Behavioral.
sense?
But I think that, I think that what I was recommending about like, you said comments, context, what else?
Yeah, it would be the changing behavioral evidence to comment or explanation. But then before it, to have a section where you could say evaluators understanding of what this means. Because that
we write in what we like, is that what you mean? Would it be open-ended or?
yeah, it would actually be for whoever is evaluating.
Like how you perceive this.
Right, and what it means to
That would
them.
kind of showcase like how they're prioritizing.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, because, you know, I will say, you know, I did manage someone once who that particular individual really was like, well, it's the amount that is produced that's really important. And I don't care if you produce 20 widgets or 5 widgets. I want to know what the quality is. I want to know how many typos I'm seeing. I want to see how much red line, how much. And so it's like, he was like, I am on average going, you know, publishing 50 documents a day. And I'm like, and I'm on average pulling 45 of those documents. You know, like, that's not great. But it was really important for me to know that.
Yeah.
Because when he came in thinking he was, you know, a 5, and I was like, not. Like, it was a good level set for both of us to kind of be able to have that discussion.
And when you do talk about potential development, it's not so much a,
Right,
this person thinks I'm doing a horrible job, it's,
yeah,
we were measuring with a different ruler,
Yeah.
we need to be measuring with a different ruler that.
right, right. And what I'm honestly uncomfortable with is, for me, like, an evaluation should be your goals. And so it's almost like, I feel like I'm pulling the rug out from somebody because, and I'm not saying we shouldn't change it because I really do not feel comfortable with some of this stuff. But it's like, came in a little bit more than a year ago,
These are the
these are the criteria, and now we're like rewriting it, changing it, and it's like a bait and switch kind of. It's fine. I think that we're improving it, but like that for me is something that makes me a little uncomfortable because it's almost like,
I think I would be less comfortable with it's number.
Yeah.
I think I would be less comfortable with this if she had been evaluated on this previously, but she will have had no reason that I know of to have seen this document yet.
I was thinking how it should be really tied to the job description, which I meant to look at and compare to, but I didn't, so. Cause like that would be something that you would.
I was gonna say, that would be.
Can
you pull it up?
I tried, why am I so bad at my Chromebook, it like never seems to.
Yeah, I felt like this, I didn't know, we should not go there.
I don't.
I'm not saying, honestly, I wouldn't even, I'd have to look back through emails and. Maybe I have it in an email, I mean, it would have been posted online and then,
But it would have been pulled.
yeah, it would have been pulled, I don't know.
I think I went back and looked at it after hiring, like, I don't know why, but I remember I did, so it's there, it's somewhere.
It's in the email came up. Oh no, proposed revision May 2022.
Okay.
Job description for posting. I mean, we may not have a final version, but unless we think.
Well, I think.
Would it help everybody to have this in front of them, or?
Well, it's, so what would be the intent of bringing up, using the job description?
To make sure that we're not straying too far in our evaluation from what we said the job was about.
That we're measuring her up against, what,
Yeah, it's like,
what
well,
we
job
have.
description, it's a, you know, like, if I have an assignment, then I make sure that I use the same rubric when I'm grading them, that I said that the assignment is for.
Yep. And since this is just something that has been, to your point, hanging around, and the idea that next year we'll revisit it, whereas that job description we did work on before.
And, you know, and actually, Matt, I'm looking through it, and it seems to be fairly comparable.
Did you find it?
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
take that and put 0 through 3 next to it.
Yeah, let's do that.
Wait, which one are you looking at? You're looking at the,
April 22, April 13, 22. I'm just trying to like resend it, or I don't know, I wish there was a screen that we could show it, throw it up on.
I know, like, I was like, let's put it in the chat. Oh, wait, no.
Actually, I can,
You could email it.
yeah, I mean, it's,
Email on there. and-
yeah, I'll email it.
I have to remember. I stuck it on my phone, I started already on save things, on non-public, yeah.
Everything on this side, like just, everything on this side, and just, and if you have access to your email, Suzanne, it's, again, it came in on April 11, 2022 from Matt, and there's a Google Doc linked. Okay, and then the three of us can just.
So this all works for Ted Foss too.
Okay, thanks, Ted.
Thank you, Ted.
Thank you, Ted.
Staff culture.
Staff culture.
It's like
April what?
11.
all done.
Christina, just like did a mic drop and left, huh?
I think Christina made.
He's usually.
Of course, no, just see
See,
community members. Questions.
yeah, articulates and understands. Ethos, complexities, cultures, unity. Gosh, guys, whoever put this together did. I mean, I know this sounds horrible, and I don't want to seem super lazy, but. Would it be so horrible to just take that verbatim and put it right, like towards the format that?
Right, in this format, and then we would.
Yeah.
I mean, if we.
I wouldn't be against it, because it makes,
Good job, we just.
Like, I understand why.
I mean, that's how it is in jobs usually, it's not much goals, yeah, you just look at the job description, so that makes sense to me.
We could add stuff about,
I
like,
still don't have it in front of me.
how can I send it to you?
So as the old guy on the board, I have to tell you, I'm putting this in my paper calendar. And one of the lovely things from Jody last Friday was that we are getting the Sun-Times, the Tribune, and the New York Times in the main library. Do you remember what a struggle that was when we got something
yes.
Yeah.
And
I agree.
thank you, staff, for making it all work.
Yeah,
Okay, I just sent it to you, I sent the link to your, board email, thank you.
yeah.
I see you're in there, right, Matt?
Yeah, I'm looking at it.
Oh, God, I just realized. My board email went off my laptop yesterday.
You want me to send it to your regular email?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, we could,
Yeah, can you tell me what your regular email?
It's like, this is where, you know, and then we start doing that.
so, yeah, I think,
To myself at my.
I think that's I think that's great. I think, you know, do we want to, is there anything in the older rubric that, because I think we don't, like the education experience and qualifications, obviously, to me, isn't
Yeah.
gonna be,
I think it's really the description piece, not the education.
yeah.
I think.
But it's like, is there anything that we want to?
I'm sorry, I don't, you were ready, Gina, you just.
The only thing that and I think I saw it in there, but I just wanna double check that it's called out, is, encourages, like a. I'm sorry, I'm not sentencing well right now. I need to read that. Like making sure that we're keeping track of community priorities as far as making sure that we have cultural representation and we have, like taking, because I don't think we articulated the anti-racism piece in the job description. Really?
It was at the top of it, wasn't it?
I don't know that we called it out in the section that we're talking about. Maybe I missed it.
Well, I could have sworn it was like, when it was on the website, it was like, up front and center. It was really. This could be one that you said, that's the old one. Is it too old, too old? That's not the one we used for the recent. That's the one I'm saying was the old. I just.
Yeah. We just look.
Our trustee emails are the first initial last name there.
Yes.
And then at oppl.org. Mine's the same.
I'm pulling this from May 17th,
Okay, May 17th sounds leader.
and it has all the comments on it.
Why? Library, I can't say the library, that one second, the other day, it's there.
Did your password expire perhaps? That's what happened with my phone, is that it didn't tell me that my password ran out, it just stopped connecting.
They have good security.
Yeah. So it was like, I didn't realize that's what happened.
Okay, so you have something, what am I looking for, Matt?
I am looking, proposed revision, May 24th, 2022.
From you?
Second.
Oh, I have something from. Proposed, no, I got it. Proposed, revision May 24, 2022. That's what we're talking about?
Yeah, at the top there.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, it's actually still online.
That's what I was just looking for.
I just Googled Oak Park Public Library, Oak Park, Illinois, Executive Director job description.
Wait, I did the same email, which, or the same search.
I did too.
What did you click on them?
But I still don't see.
It's it's opp.org/wp-content/2022/05/oak.
I meant upload, sorry.
No problem.
oppl.org/wb.content
Mhm.
/uploads
/2022/05/Oak Park dash park, or sorry, Oak dash park dash public dash library dash executive dash director dash job dash description dash May dash 2022 dot PDF.
dash art dash public dash library dash executive dash director dash planning dash.
No, job description, executive dash, director dash, that might be.
I sent it to both just now. I sent the doc.
I'm sorry, what is going through her mind when she's doing that?
I just Googled OBPL or the executive director job description. and
Well, if you want it to be more straightforward and simpler, I
Yeah.
guess you can try the first.
So.
Sorry about the investor. It was not meant to be mean. It just occurred to me. It was like transcriptions and people listening online do not necessarily always get my sarcasm.
See, another thing we need to. I still don't see anything about, well. Not, I don't see
Staff.
nothing, but in board accountability, there's, operational, fiscal and anti-racism strategic plans.
Yeah, see, I knew it was in there somewhere.
But
I
it's-
don't know if it's robust enough.
Yeah, right, but it's not like,
Well, would this be sufficient for us to do this cycle of evaluation and then reconsider sometime in the spring, summer, discussing with Jocelyn the framework and expectations for next year?
yeah.
Like you,
That would be very fair, given that this is what
she was
she
hired
signed up for.
a year ago. Okay.
So that also means, Matt, I think that also means for your conversation with Billy about.
Basing it off the description.
Yeah. Doing the same, I'm still not on the same page here, folks, I apologize, but.
I sent the doc to your Gmail.
The new one or the one from?
Yeah, the one that says proposed revision 8/24/2022, which actually was not super different, but.
Mhm.
You don't have it for me?
I do, but I don't. Think that's the one that we used. That's my point, I don't think this is the one.
Do you wanna,
It's the one we approved.
I think it's-
the one we approved.
this is, this looks like that's on the
Yeah,
one that's been
yeah.
posted online.
Okay. I mean, things live on their number still, so there's been a good question on that.
Yeah, but I'm thinking about the timeline, that this was revised in May, and then she was hired in November.
Yeah,
There was hiring process in there, I feel like this has to be.
yeah, it was, yeah.
Okay, and it's the one that, so it's the same one we've been looking at, that we didn't find it different. Okay,
I think this is a little different from the kind of the bullets, the font of the bullets, but like.
it just feels like it's very different from what it appeared on our website, but. Then it's the one that we approved.
So using this as the framework, are there any items from that are not there that we want to, from the existing rubric that we want to include? I just want to put it out there, because I know it's like, this is the bigger, there's like, are there any items that, like, you know, I don't. Not to say that I'm advocating for the interpersonal thing, but it's like, that's. A thing the executive director does and would provide feedback for, but it's not necessarily anything we put in a job description. You know, are there things that are here that we feel are part of the general gist of an executive director's position that are in the current rubric that we have used for far too long, that are not reflected in our specific job description that we want to include, like general principle, like this is a thing that all executive directors should kind of do, that we didn't, yes.
Organizational leadership. It's weirdly not on this job description. I think that makes sense because it is kind of the summary of responsibilities,
Okay,
but it was so obvious it's not necessarily straight on there. And I think the financial piece needs to be in this. Budget finance is right there.
I'm saying
I was just gonna say.
And there is, well, we do have other responsibilities with the job
I've not really seen it.
So if there are other things, I think we have the ability to plunk a couple in there.
Sure, and that's what I'm thoroughly open to. Now,
I like that we're sticking to
the job description.
the job description.
I think that's fair, and then,
Yeah.
once this process is done, we can sit down and go, okay, here's our point, here's this other thing. What are some other things we want to, that we were gonna tell you now in the spring, that January 2025, we're gonna be evaluating you on. You know, we're giving you 6 months heads up on, 6, 9 months to heads up on it, so. Are there things in the old rubric that we would want to make sure are, identified
Matt?
in the. Yes.
Matt, I have a question. In the banking industry, they have something that's called an employee satisfaction survey. And
Yes,
we had spoken earlier about the fact that the staff surveys that we've done have not really been effective in looking at the executive director. Can we do something like an employee satisfaction survey?
absolutely. I'm gonna talk to Billy in the morning about how we can, if they don't already have something in place for that kind of it's sometimes called a 360 evaluation of someone where you get both their supervisors and their subordinates about getting something in place like that if it's not already there. So I'm gonna have that conversation with Billy tomorrow.
Thank you, because I do think that this would help with a lot of the issues that we're like having to boil right now.
Sure. I think there's agreements around the table on that one, Ted. Thank you.
I think there are some of the interpersonal items that we haven't added. I don't know that I love the wording, but
Sure.
I don't know if maintains high ethics and standards. I think it would be something more like displays the values and of the library, something that I think that might not be in the job description, because again, that's not a job description.
That we feel like we need to identify.
Yeah.
It should be part of the field.
And then there's responding to the unexpected, open to ideas from, I don't think it should just be from the board, it should be just open to ideas. Like there are a couple of, those were in the.
Okay.
Characteristics.
Yeah.
So can I recommend that we start maybe with like a general, to Matt's earlier point of there being more than the softest parts. There being like a general, again, I think it's leadership, just like a general comment on leadership.
Mhm.
And then maybe we can find bullet points that we think, or ideas, or, values that aren't.
Since that wasn't something that we had, sorry, spitball. Since that wasn't something that we had specifically on the job description, how would we feel the first time just asking for a narrative response on her leadership, and then sort of to Maya's point, allow her to define what she thinks leadership is and how she thinks she's accomplishing that?
Right, but we would want something specific to respond to, right? Like if we wanted to talk in our evaluations, if we want to speak to her leadership skills. So this could be salaries, so like hers is.
Or I think we could do.
I like Virginia's idea of at least this first one.
I do
think
too.
this year of, because she's got a year under her feet. She's got a chance to kind of put her hands on everything and really kind of should be in a place to define what her vision of leadership is in this organization as it is with her at the head of it.
and I think because we didn't make specific call outs. You know, if we decided as a board that the way we want to measure her is against what we asked her to do when we hired her, then I think the appropriate response is like, we want to know about your leadership skills, your leadership capabilities, what you have done. We're not going to define that for you, we're going to ask you to define that.
Well,
to
and
us.
if this is the job description, it says the ability to articulate one's leadership style and its impact is essential. Reveal leadership ability, initiative and self-monitoring. Communication, organizational skills.
I would like to attribute that to the number of times. Last year.
Wait, where did you find that?
I just search for leadership and well. And it's under education experience and well.
So how do you feel like for like an opening thing of like organizational leadership? Please explain like, or how do you define your leadership style and vision of the library?
I guess I want that, I'm not saying that this is not a, it's a yes and, sorry, it's a yes and. I'm saying that we should also have comments about, we should also have a space for providing comments on leadership skills as we define it, or something that's not.
I think we should as 7 individuals, and then we should sit down.
That's what I'm saying.
So I think we should have separated into box.
Yeah, and
Yes.
you have like that little box here.
Yeah, I don't want us to have like bullet points for it, I want it to just be a narrative from each of us.
I have a crim. Would it be possible, because I think it is fair to have her define her leadership, for her to do that and give her like 2 weeks to do that, so that we can see that before we do the evaluation? Like, I don't necessarily need to see like the full self-evaluation, but I would like to see like that piece.
But again, we're not doing the evaluation part until.
Oh, that's right, okay, then never mind.
So,
Fair enough.
we'll.
We can be able to
Well, yeah.
incorporate that.
Yeah, and that's what I want, careful in our articulation of leadership qualities. To make them forward looking as opposed to retrospective, right, like we can be like, moving forward, these are the things that we had loved seeing. You know,
Well, it's gonna be
you bring to the
more-
table, we were excited to see you stop on this, but I also think that there might be things. I don't know what they are, I'm not trying to report, but I'm just saying that there might be things that aren't covered here that we would like to speak to, right, and
I think giving us a narrative space to talk about leadership broadly, because her
Yes.
job title is executive director, and by nature that means her job is leadership. I think that means whatever we feel doesn't fall strictly within one of these bullet points, that we can raise that in that narrative section, the same way we're going to ask her to do the same thing.
yeah. So I'm thinking about it as a portion that's like distributing the poll or whatever, then I was thinking that a couple of examples when we're like 3 weeks out from this conversation. Might not be, or like, it might not are being able to articulate what we mean by that. And again, they don't have to be binding, and they don't have to be, they don't have to be, completely inclusive. Like they don't have to be exhaustive, as I guess they will be exhausting, but they don't have to be exhaustive. But I just need like a few things to like get us thinking about what kinds of things that we're thinking about might be helpful, again, as a, not as like a thing that you give her a point score on, or an executive director a point score on, but things that we think are the kinds of things that are not included here.
I don't know,
As examples, you know.
No, like, I'm thinking, like, I don't know if I wanna hand myself in, like, if I have an example, is that gonna change what I would have said, because I'm gonna be focusing on the examples that are given, versus what I would have just thought about in the process.
Well, I think that, I know that we're gonna have a conversation in closed session, but I think that a free-for-all where we just talk about is right for us. I think that some language is not a bad idea, like, do you know what I mean, like, some just. That's very covered, but I think that something about, I mean, if it was, let's say, something about like, bullet point about proportion skills that aren't here. Or something else, you know, like, I understand that I'm asking us to define the ineffable, which is ridiculous, but I do think that if there's, I don't want us to just have like, even though it'll be in closed session and it's only us that sees it and conceivably maybe only me that sees all seven or whatever. I think that it's a little right for max, like I think there's potential there that I think that's just some structure. Not a lot, but some structure would be helpful, so we know that what kind of, so we know we're asking for comments about some specific things. I think that we would need to be more accountable to boundaries than the executive director, who gets to define this in whatever way she chooses.
Do we then want to use some of the information from the qualifications, like possess the ability to analyze, interpret, lead, and implement strategies associated with business and like, do we want to use those as the basis for how do we want to think about judging leadership?
Well, and I guess we might, like, this is where there will be a couple changes, because it's like, it's not about your possession, it's about how you're utilizing those skills. Right, it's like, but that's something that if we use the job description and that's our template, like that red line is a much different red line than, you know, like trying to turn like, oh, does she keep her emotional stability? I don't know why, I just totally see it. There's a certain.
Totally written for the map.
She was so much mad for saying that. I didn't wanna get like the polite politics, be like, did you hear Christine Julie and what she had to say? Now it's done. You know,
Boys, like 19.
right, maintains her, people for polished.
Yeah, for the touching.
Yeah, but. You know, we're gonna have to pull this into something like this with 2 lines, one about what it means, one about what behavioral evidence is. And then we're gonna actually have to go through a red line, because it's not about whether or not you have that capacity, but it's how have you demonstrated, or what skills have you used? How have you displayed? Okay, exactly. How have you displayed your ability to problem solve, reason, whatever? And so but that's a very different thing than trying to turn, you know, maintains emotional capacity with, you know, into this, which is actually what we put out to the public in a document.
Right, so I guess maybe I can be good at that,
Start out your point, Maya, and I think I just lost the thought, but, when you were talking about how have you displayed, I think it's even more important instead of how have you displayed, but how they've been put into use to the benefit of staff and community.
Yeah.
Like, and I think that's the thing we want to remember, is that it's, like, what's the result on staff and community?
Exactly what we're talking about with all the categories and saying, it's not just a current, you guys, a current can do something with it.
Yeah, it's like, what,
Yeah.
and what is.
What do you gotta do?
Execution, what is the culture?
Yeah.
What is the work culture? What is the, you know,
Yeah.
like, what's being created?
what is the execution of the actual value? So, so my suggestion was that we take, as we said, we take the job description and the actual responsibilities part. Excuse me, the further detail of executive director responsibilities. And make those into our rubric criteria, right? And that the general comment to us, so she gets a general narrative box where she gets to identify, self-define, articulate what being a leader is and like have that narrative piece. But for us, there is some summary, I think the last 3 bullet points under education, experience and qualifications. There is some restatement, some summation of that. That acts as a potential guide for our comments about leadership.
I think that's I think that's,
Yeah, let's get into the leadership piece.
yeah. And then, yeah, and then then there's the, yeah. Yeah,
And then we only have a total of 7 categories, it's a little fewer.
mm-hmm. You're qualified.
Yeah.
I think I can water by one.
There's, let me grab.
I went to the fountain, because I was like feeling
I went to the
dry.
didn't really want to do, but I thought I thought.
That's the doors in here.
The lozenge. I have a penny, I don't know if that sounded really odd.
Thanks for releasing. I'm still using your.
Really?
Yeah, the copper and the penny also these.
Really? Okay. Yeah, I noticed that, and I was like, oh, she got the same hair salon. And I was like, no, wait, that's a pen. It's it's my library pen. It's your library pen.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So what I'm hearing is creation of that, and we'll using those 7 categories for the job description. And they'll put a narrative, open-ended thing for Jocelyn about her defining her leadership style and vision for the library. We'll use the final 3 bullet points under the education, experience, and qualifications as a basis for the board to assess going for this. And we will use the 3, excellent, satisfactory, do we want to say needs improvement, needs development? Does that matter?
I think it should, I mean, I think we should talk about. If their development, I mean, it's not necessarily development, it could just be potential, she's been here a year. Like,
Yeah.
it could just be,
Development potential?
yeah, but I don't think that needs to be a level, I think that needs to be, like, we need to have a high, medium, low, and then over here is. Opportunities for development,
Right.
or, like, it needs to be separate from.
Because someone can be satisfactory and still have development
She's gonna be
opportunities.
doing really great, and then we're like, but we're in another COVID situation, so we need to up your skills in like, whatever. It doesn't mean.
9 out of 10, this 10th one you're missing by a lot.
So maybe that's like another, just another line. Instead of the, what's right now is the evidence, the behaviors.
Yeah, I can.
Behavioral evidence is so we're gonna change that anyway, but another line could just be. Opportunities for development, right? And then that's.
There's the last page, is like, yeah, kind of just whatever, just 5 general things across any of the categories,
So I think in our individual areas, if there's something that we see, then we would put it in this evidence section. And then
Yeah.
as a group, when we're sitting down, we would decide, okay, these are the 5 things that we want to report as a group or
Yeah.
address.
I think that's a good approach.
And then I would think maybe for next year, that would be that would incorporate that into the criteria,
Yeah, I think so. I think that's a fair.
I think this is good. I think we're.
I remember someone enthusiastically volunteering.
That was the lead by the way.
I can do it. I am so You don't mind doing that?
Yeah.
Well, we wouldn't do it, but if we wanna do it.
But it kind of, I don't want to like push it all on one person, but I think whoever.
Yeah, you just about to do that.
Why don't do it? Unless you wanted to give her access to the system to type it all in. It kind of feels like it has to sit with whoever's going to collect it. It has to be is the, or whoever's
Yeah,
just like, yeah, I think it just makes sense for that, because otherwise you have to give permission, and access to something.
That service though, perfect.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna tell you. It starts right now, it's 9 o'clock.
Okay.
Okay, so again, just to be clear
So-
about time, because then this document, which is separate, seriously separate from the actual poll, would be something that we want to bring for the January meeting, right?
Yes,
So
and,
that,
and look at how it flows,
yeah,
and I think, and if.
And
we
have an
have
origin.
all- Yeah, and if we're ready with how that looks, we can, then that might be like, Jocelyn, go forth and fill.
And it's not just, you know, I don't want to do lots of meetings, if we need to have another meeting next week to finalize this, before we go to that meeting. I would prefer like more shorter meetings than getting to the point where we're just so stressed that we just go, oh yeah, whatever. I think we're gonna go into that.
And thank you, Matt, for talking to Billy for tomorrow for the employee satisfaction survey possibility.
Something is if you put something together, we can have another, meeting. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're meeting in a week and a half. This week was I'm trying, I'm not used to being in this position and not the quiet sort of, background. But so if we were to throw around the document and do the red line, we could present the red line and actually even change it in the meeting. So
2 hours.
that we should not have that meeting, but I was gonna say.
We should have it in advance to review.
Yes,
and be
Because
ready.
we're not discussing, we're redlining the document individually, and then we can discuss it openly, properly. To make the open meeting act very happy.
so can I still need to know, because if we're back for a meeting in a week and a half or 10 days, then when don't I need to have do we need the board materials for that meeting?
The board materials, what's required for and I've relooked over this, is the agenda.
Yeah.
And anything that we are going to vote on.
It
Like,
doesn't have to be the supplemental information.
no, because if this is just the discussion, we've never voted whether or not to adopt this as a
Okay.
rubric. This is like a thing we just use. So unless we don't have to vote to use this, because this is a board decision. And so we can just have the agenda item of discussion of the evaluation rubric. And that's all we need to have.
Okay, but then the question is more informal about like when would we like to have it so that we can actually look at it.
I think if we could have it. I mean, obviously, the sooner the better, but I think like the Friday night before, so that we could have the weekend to look over.
So
the
next
ex-
Friday.
Yeah, the extensive 7 categories.
If by any chance it could be morning on Friday, that'd be awesome.
That would be super cool, because I'll be here for the
Why
rest
not just Friday tomorrow? Why? we should be able to wait.
I was gonna say, oh, here, reading that, I could pick up a paper copy.
Yeah, oh, yeah, the whole.
Because I come here.
Which is going on. Yeah, which has been handled,
It's not, yeah. That
Thanks,
was, yeah.
so.
Okay, so I didn't.
But then also, like, if you didn't get to it sooner, couldn't you email it to us and then we could
Right.
respond individually?
Deadline, it's not.
Yeah, if you get the notes, yes. But I think, no, I think at that point, we just bring
That's
all of our notes to the meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, me too. That's what I'm doing.
So we have next steps.
I have to.
And then this means that you are still talking to Billy,
Yes,
but you do not have to reach out to ALA unless you want to,
Okay.
correct? Is that where we are? Is
yes,
that what you plan?
that sounds like it,
Okay. Make it so.
right?
And I'm something else if you need, because we're allowed to, or two at a time, so if you need help or something, you know.
Thank you.
I currently, but then nobody.
That
Was
was,
there-
that was because it was disseminated and appropriate.
Either of you wanna have,
Yeah, let's do a really quick closed session,
okay,
really
Like
quick.
a 7 minute or something?
Yes, exactly.
Also, is anything here to validate parking?
yes, there's that,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, we're here. So, I'll get to switch. Ted, where do you want to close session? I don't, we didn't set up a separate Zoom, so unfortunately, we're gonna have to do it without you.
Are we able to call him and so it's to be recorded?
I don't know how to record a phone. And
That's terribly low tech, I'm so sorry.
Have on speaker phone.
Well,
But,
what does he want to do?
it's up to you. Do you wanna do you want one of us to call you and you'll be on speakerphone? During closed session, or you just wanna call it a night? It's gonna be like 5, maybe.
До
10 minutes.
свидания.
Good night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know what. First data to. Goddamn data. Shot is recording.
I'm going to let the professionals at that, and I'm going to take a quick bathroom break.
That's actually.
It was lovely, thank you for doing this.